Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, good morning, everyone. My name is Omar Samko. I'm an instructional technologist at University Online Education Services at Rutgers University. On behalf of the 2025 Rutgers University Online Learning Conference, I welcome Carla Caponegro, Assistant Teaching Professor in the Rutgers Writing Program and Director of the Pangea Writing Center. We're pleased to have her share their thoughts on generative AI in writing education, opportunities, challenges, and strategies for ethical integration. During the presentation, please be sure to engage using the live chat session. If you have any questions or anything, please ask them in the live chat. I just want to make sure folks are in the session chat. So if you look up in the top right of your chat, you'll see there's event, by agenda, and session. Go ahead and click session so you're in the session chat for our presentation here today. Carla, we're excited to have you. Please take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Omar is going to share our slides here. This was intended to be a co-presentation. Oh, that is a very
Oops, sorry.
Omar. That is a very interesting view. This was intended to be a co-presentation with my dear friend Sarah Perryman, who is my colleague in the writing program and also the director of the Livingston Writing Center. But she did have she had an emergency, a medical emergency this weekend with her mother. So unfortunately, she won't be joining us. So I am picking up the presentation, and I'm going to, towards the end, invite you to really have a conversation about it and ask questions, and we can all talk about it because, as you may know, this is not a done deal by any means. We're still in the process of figuring out how to best use Gen AI in education, and if so, even if we can use it, how you can use it, and to what extent our students are going to benefit from it. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for being here, and let's start. Omar? So the first part of the presentation is going to take you through a little bit of kind of what we are, what is the climate in the field. And we're going to talk a little bit about what experts and professors, teachers of writing have to say about it. Next slide. So the rise of artificial intelligence in writing has sparked intense debate over the implications in education and professional writing. As AI-generated text becomes more sophisticated, the necessity for teaching traditional writing skills has been questioned. And I'm offering here three different quotes that reflect this view. The first one is from Stephen Lane, who wrote an op-ed in Boston Globe in November 2024, and he is a teacher in high school of econ and social studies. So he says, this perspective suggests that AI tools can handle the mechanics of writing, allowing educators to focus on other skills. So let's go ahead and read this. Thanks to AI, this is the first quote that is included on the slide. Thanks to AI, writing's place in the curriculum today is like that of arithmetic at the dawn of cheap and widely available calculators. Teachers spend a lot of time trying to sort the need to know from the nice to know, and given what AI can do, writing may no longer be a need to know. I'm sure in your circles, if you are teaching writing or you have been sort of like adjacently assigning writing assignments, writing assessment in your courses, you have heard this comparison of the calculator, the advent of calculator, and Gen AI for writing. So we can talk a little bit more about that. So this perspective suggests, like I said, that the mechanics of writing could be set aside, and educator could focus on other skills that are indeed need to know, not nice to know. And in the same kind of vein, we have Melissa Nicolas proposing the eliminating of the required first-year writing courses, assuming AI will take care of students' writing challenges. These arguments reflect the growing belief that writing, which was once a fundamental skill, may become secondary to specialized disciplinary knowledge. And I quote, this is another op-ed from Inside Higher Ed by Melissa Nicholas, who has a PhD, an MA and a PhD in rhetoric and composition studies. So she's also part of this conversation. She says, students don't need a required first-year writing course anymore. And yes, AI will take care of students' biggest writing problems, so professors can spend all their time on disciplinary content. This was written in November 2023. The concern over AI impact extends beyond education to professional writing. And you will see this in the third quote by Thomas Germain, highlighting that AI is already reshaping the job market. And this was written in June 2024, and he is referencing the Hollywood writers strike. And I'm going to read that to you. If there is one thing the large language models powered by generative AI can do, it's string together words and paragraphs, putting some writers on the front line. The fear of losing work to AI-powered writing tools was one of the main issues that led to the screenwriter strike in the US last year. So this was also another op-ed published in the BBC in June 2024, and I want to mention that these views are not a complete representation, right? Like these are not a full representation of the ongoing conversations on the topic and discussions among composition experts. The conversations are much more nuanced than this one perspective. However, as AI continues to reshape writing, the challenge will be to balance technological efficiency with human input. So let's see exactly how much overlap is there, between Gen AI and human writing, and rather than seeing AI as an excuse to abandon writing instruction, it may be an opportunity to rethink writing education, what it should look like in a world in which Gen AI is part of the process. So maybe I can signal to Omar now if we have like two very simplistic polls, just to kind of get the polls of your familiarity with AI tools. Thank you, Omar. So if you could just answer this. Have you used generative AI tools such as ChatGPT to assist you in writing? Okay, I don't know. Can anybody, Omar, would you like to help me out here, or somewhat familiar?
Yes, so it looks like we're about to have 41 votes for yes, and the overall majority right now, it looks like yes. So about 76% of folks are saying they have used generative AI tools.
And maybe we can open up the follow-up with how familiar, yes, even though we use them, are we familiar, somewhat familiar? And these are, again, very non-specific. Familiar is up to what you consider to be familiar, how confident you are in using them, I guess. Familiar, somewhat familiar, and not familiar would be your options.
Yep, so there we're about pretty even for familiar and somewhat familiar, and very few not familiar. I'm sure many folks.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. So I think we can move back into the slides, Omar, if that's okay, and move to the next slide, which is a little bit about understanding, or like talking a little bit about AI and how Gen AI functions. So the next slide, yeah. So how it actually works. Very complicated. We are not all here in AI. We don't understand fully the mechanics behind it, but there's been a lot of conversation, and I think a fair amount of it has focused on the concerns. So I think it would be good just to do like a quick recap, right? On how what we're using, what we are getting when we're using Gen AI. So although it has advanced so rapidly, producing human-line text and images that often seemed indistinguishable from human-created content, um, this Gen AI does not work like human intelligence, as our own Lauren Goodlad highlights. Lauren Goodlad, I would like to give her a shout out. She is doing some extraordinary work with critical AI here at Rutgers, and she has published um, a lot of articles with Matthew Stone, alongside Matthew Stone, discussing the implication of AI in writing courses. And I'm quoting her here, as she highlights in her critical AI guide to students. Um, these systems do not truly understand language or images in the way that humans do. Instead, they operate through probabilistic pattern matching, predicting the most statistically likely response, than engaging in genuine comprehension or reasoning. This fundamental difference means that while AI generated content can appear sophisticated, it really lacks deeper meaning, it lacks intent and contextual awareness. A major concern is the accuracy and reliability of AI generated text. Unlike search engines, which retrieve factual information, AI models generate text based on patterns in their training data that can lead to misinformation, fabrication, or outdated content. Without thorough proofreading, fact checking, AI generated writing may propagate errors, and it is a risky tool for academic and professional use without proper oversight and understanding of the mechanism behind it. And I'm just going to touch very briefly on the ethical consideration, since you are all a rather literate crowd in terms of AI. I will not insist upon them, but I think that Amherst College Library, along with many other sources, outlines the risk associated with AI very well. And these include bias, misrepresentation, and marginalization, issues that stem from biased training data, leading to AI to reinforce harmful stereotypes. AI also relies on vast data sets that often extract and repurpose copyright content without proper attribution. There are questions about authorship and intellectual property. And of course, we cannot overlook the labor exploitation of workers who train and moderate AI models, often under poor working conditions. And more popular maybe in the sphere even of social media and our writing circles are the environmental impact of AI. The computational power required to train and run these models consumes substantial energy, contributing to carbon emissions and resource depletion. So these are just a few ethical concerns that are added into, that come with the access to such generative AI tools. So let's move to the next slide. At this point, I decided, so we should look at how much overlap there is, right? So we understand how this Gen AI works and how does writing instruction function. So as I mentioned in the beginning, the conversation on AI and writing is quite nuanced. And I showed you some perspectives in the beginning. And now I want to bring to the forefront some experts in writing um, who present a different perspective. And I chose primarily Jane Rosenzweig, who is actually the Writing Center director at Harvard University. And during COVID, she put together this writing hacks that I have it referenced here in the slides. This is a blog that she writes, in which she writes consistently about her professional activity, especially issues related to AI. So let's see what she says here. The first quote comes from June 2023. If we treat writing as a product that we can outsource, we miss that is in the process of writing that we figure out what we think. And then in May 2024, she goes on saying, I don't assign summaries and analysis because I need more summary and analysis. So, what we're trying to say here is that the writing in itself cannot be separated from the process of thinking. So, the fundamental value of writing in writing courses is to help students, to support students to find their voice and their critical thinking voice, their approach to how they make sense of the world. And I continue her, I like her. Her approach here. I assign these projects because I want to help my students think through complex ideas and grapple with them. I don't ask my students to write papers because the world needs more student papers. It's not about the product. I assign papers because I want my students to go through the process of figuring out what they think. The friction is the point. The friction she refers to, the difficulty students face when trying to organize and articulate their thinking, is where the real learning happens. So Rosenzweig suggests that this cognitive challenge where students confront and refine their ideas is central to intellectual growth. If AI can replace this whole system, then students lose the opportunity to develop these essential skills. It will be obviously much easier to have somebody generate a summary, or like to have one of these models generate a summary or analysis. But if the focus is not the product, we're not looking for a summary of an article that us as writing faculty already are familiar with. We're doing this for the students to go through the process. So the third quote here that you see comes from Mandy Olenchik in her article, AI Won't Replace Writing Instruction, and here is why. And it's almost a response to the previous quote we saw on how first-year writing courses should be banished. And this is what Mary writes. Writing is thinking and learning, including in disciplinary courses. Learning how to write is disciplinary content. She emphasizes that writing is not a one-size-fits-all skill. It must be tailored to each disciplinary context. For example, the way that students in accounting and engineering write are vastly different from the writing conversations in the humanity and social sciences. These differences require disciplinary knowledge to be integrated into instructions. The goal of instructions for Olesnik is not to produce generic writing skills, but to help students understand how to communicate effectively within their chosen fields. So that friction that Rosenzweig brings into conversation, that functions within every discipline. It's about learning how to think, whether it is through a discipline, in navigating the news, or learning how to express proper scientific research that you have engaged in, that students engage in. The friction is absolutely necessary to produce a well thought out product. Okay, so let's move on, Omar. The next portion of this presentation that I have is includes some of the results of a questionnaire that Sarah and I put together last semester, and asking students how they engage with AI, with generative AI tools. So we can move on to the next one. Okay, So what do students say? This is, I included some of the questions. This was a self kind of a study for the writing centers. We are trying to figure out how to better prepare our tutors to respond to the growing use of generative AI tools in writing assignments that is being that we see in our writing centers. So these are some of the questions. This is question 36. How do you perceive the use of GenAI tools? Choose all that apply. So these are all the students. The sample was not very big. We worked with students who were engaged with the writing centers and were willing to give us some opinion about their use. So what we have here, the surveys show that the majority of respondents view generative AI tools as a beneficial platform for improving learning. That is about 33%. I mean, not about, that is 33% of students responded that. This was a choose all that applies. So you will see how the answers kind of are spread throughout. There is also, so 33% recognize this as a beneficial platform for improving learning, while also recognizing the time-saving potential, 18%. However, ethical concerns are prevalent, with 10% of the students seeing GenAI as a form of cheating or plagiarism, and 5% feeling the need to hide its use. Career perceptions here are mixed, with slightly more respondents viewing the GenAI as an asset for future job performance, and that is 10%, and 7% of students noted that it could be a threat to their career goals. A smaller group is concerned about the accuracy and bias of GenAI generated information, which is about 5%, and about 10% of respondents have no opinion on GenAI use, indicating the need for further education or awareness about its implication. So I guess overall, we could say that this is a positive view of GenAI tools in the context of education. Let's move to the next slide. The next question was about question 37. How frequently do you use GenAI as a resource for your academic assignments? And we have here overwhelming 65% is 65% indicate that they use it sometimes, as with significant minority of 21% that says that they never use it. While smaller group using it more frequently. Generally speaking, students use it for about 70 to 80%. Use it sometimes at least. Let's move it next slide. Yeah. This is a much more this little pie chart is a little more colorful than the other two, and we can see a little more spread out responses. The question is, in what ways do you find GenAI useful? Choose all that apply again, and we see the majority of the first three, I guess, responses that were preferred by students are an 18% of summarizing difficult texts, with another 18% indicating brainstorming ideas and grammar and spelling. And all the other ones you can take a little look for yourself. So I mean, students are using it. This is why, as you could see, this is why I chose the quote that I selected before, in understanding the type of comments we have when it comes to major parts of the writing process, right? Like brainstorming, summarizing, and grammar and form, right? Okay, so let's move on to the next slide and see. We are, after looking at the climate and what is in the field, we could say, how do we use GenAI in the classroom? And what are some possibilities? We've heard many experts or students' voices saying that, they use these tools in various ways to improve writing efficiency, for enhanced quality of writing, or better form, for personalized learning, for idea generation and structuring, support for language learning, critical thinking development, accessibility. But the truth is, we're in a phase of still kind of figuring out what are some really good ways to use it at various states of the writing process. So I selected here a quote from, can GenAI lead to positive outcomes in the writing instruction after all? Are there, can anybody come up and say, yes, this is what we found based on the studies? So many studies are still underway as we speak. I selected this one from General AI Impact on Graduate Student Writing Productivity and Quality, that was led by Jordan Hussein, and it was highlighted in the. You can click. Omar, would you mind clicking on the link? So as you could see, the Carnegie Mellon University, this was part of their news. They announced the way that this study is giving positive responsive initial responses. And I would just say, a new study on the impact of generative AI on graduate level writing finds that with proper instruction, it can drastically reduce writing time and elevate average grades, demonstrating its transformative potential in academic and professional writing. Um, what the article continues to say is that the most important part of the study is that, and you can read about how it was kind of developed. The students were offered AI literacy, that were guided through AI literacy substantially. These are advanced students with advanced academic skills in a field, and they were properly guided through understanding how generative AI tools work. And once they were offered the information of how these tools perform and what type of writing they generate, they were able to use it by using their critical thinking approaches in selecting the tools or the parts of the writing process that they can find support with through using these tools. We can go back to the slide. So I mean, in light of this, in this or guided by this study presented here, and about discussions that are happening in the field among colleagues and other possible exercises that at this point quite honestly flood the internet, I decided to maybe work with you, and we can figure it out how this works with some application in what people call stasis theory. Okay, so I'm going to read these two two quotes that come from Gwendolyn Inocencio, who is a PhD candidate and teaches English, who teaches composition study at Texas A&M through the Teaching Excellence Center. She says, stasis theory is a rhetorical strategy that provides a framework for dissecting AI-generated content. By asking questions about its factual accuracy, definition, quality, and implication, students engage in a thoughtful analysis, preserving their intellectual integrity. Teaching AI literacy alongside course content is paramount. It equips students with the skills to navigate AI's omnipresence responsibly. By integrating AI into the curriculum and setting clear guidelines for its use, we create an environment where technology serves as a tool, not a crutch. So we note the same kind of approaches that seem to crystallize through this presentation. Yes, okay, Gen AI is a tool. Okay, it could be effective, but how? The common denominator here seems to be there needs to be AI literacy. This is the first step. The students need to understand what these tools can do when what they cannot do, what they provide, what are the pitfalls of the text that it generates or the information it puts before them. What are the skills they need to hone in order to properly utilize the information that they may get through using these tools? So, stasis theory, we can move on to the next slide. The stasis theory, we can click, do you mind, Omar, clicking on the stasis theory, just because it's like somewhat of a um, term that is not familiar to everybody. So what is that? This is basically the process, the part of the writing process that requires the students to ask the questions based on this theory. This is a the quote mentioned, this is a question pre-writing process developed in ancient Greece. And it evolved into nowadays in maintaining its accuracy and relevance. And if you look here, the the four basic stasis categories are the facts, the meaning, so the seriousness of the issue, the quality, and the plan for action. If you move down into this, Omar, I just wanted to show you in terms of facts. We will, you're asking yourself what is happening, what are the facts, what do we know about a specific issue. This theory, I feel like I'm moving really fast. You can go move down a little bit, but I want you to bring it down to the way that this theory started. So the way this theory is applied right now is related to the 6 generalistic questions of who, what, where, when, why, how. Okay, so we're all familiar with this series of journalistic questions, when dissecting a problem and understanding what are the facts and how it is viewed. So going back to our slides, I'm sorry. What I'm going to try to do with you, I'm going to invite you to maybe process this activity as a possible activity in a classroom. It doesn't have to be a writing classroom. It can be applied to a writing assessment of any kind. But the activity's objective is to strengthen critical skills during the writing process. We can see, as I said before, the generative AI tools, models, most easily kind of help students bypass the critical thinking process. So if we are going to use it in the classroom, we have to find a way that really enhances this step, the critical thinking skills, rather than bypassing it. So this might be a good idea, and we can go through it. So we will use the stasis theory to analyze a controversial issue, generate AI responses for different stasis level, and critically assess AI generated arguments. Let's see what that may look like. So we can all try this on our own, and we can have a conversation. So the step one would be to select an arguable topic and formulate a questions for debate, right? So in a recent course that I am teaching, we are writing a argumentative paper on the specific impact of technology on community. And some of the articles that we looked at, among one of the main articles we looked at was The Atlantic, We Are Living in an Antisocial Century. This is a piece that appeared over the summer, so it's quite relevant. And I gave you an example. This could be an arguable topic. Do we live in an antisocial century? Another option for a question that you may would like to take on to explore how GenAI works would be, should AI generated content be automatically considered plagiarism? Anything that is, you can select a topic that is within your field that it's arguable, just to kind of test it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to break the argument into 4 stages. Let's click on that, Omar. Okay, again, we're going down here and I'm going to ask you to, yes, the fact. So we're going to break the argument into 4 different categories, and you're going to formulate 2 or 3 questions in each category. For example, the category of facts, you would like, if you are to choose, are we living in an antisocial um, century? You would like to ask, why would I claim that? What are the facts that lead to this argument to be a valid argument, right? Everybody is using their phones too much, so they don't hang out together. We find maybe also the facts that you have gathered from your experience or from the writing, from the research process that you have been exposed to prior to this exercise. So the definition, how do we define terms that really stabilize the question of the argument? What does it mean, antisocial? What does it mean, antisocial century? What exactly does it start, right? So forth. Let's go back to the slide. So what I'm trying to do with this example activity is to get you through an exercise that students may use in class, in the same way that students would go in class, at a part of the writing process that is not in the beginning. This is not a brainstorming activity. This is not a drafting activity. This is not a form activity. This is rather a part of the process in which the students have their own perspective that they bring to the table. And now they are having to use their perspective in order to question and critically assess the facts or assumptions that a tool like ChatGPT might bring to them through this question when they answer these questions. So you, for for the purpose of this activity, if you'd like to engage, you can ask a few questions in each category of the stasis, and then we can basically see what ChatGPT spits back and deliberate. How can you assess the factual information? Are these things that you'd consider? Are these things that you didn't consider? Do you see any relevance? Do you see clarity in the way the terms are defined? Does it address counter arguments? These are examples of questions that the students will ask once the answer to these questions are being generated. In our make-believe activity, so this activity would be follow-up. First, will be individually engaging with the paper they're writing, then generating the questions, and then receive the answers. They will then assess the quality, and small group the discussions and presentations would be where everybody all the students in class and small group discuss the finding in this exercise. And the step 6 would be a reflection on how AI provided information. Are these coherent argument? Why? Discussing the depth and nuance and bias of the answers provided. So with exercises like this, that with exercises like this, what we're trying to do is rather than take away the ability for students to engage critically with the material and being provided with a certain direction, the students already come to the table with their own preliminary research and their experience, and they are now faced with the information that is available to them through these tools, and they have to really look at it in a very critical way and see how it adds to their already preliminary constructed argument and evidence. This activity, I know I started it by saying that maybe we can engage in it. I'm not sure how much time we have because I wanted to engage in questions. But this is a sample activity that you can easily do on your own before you provide it to students. And then you could see what kind of answers you're getting. When I worked with my students in class to similar activities, we found a level of general answer and generic kind of statements that students very seldom found useful for their papers. That is not to say that they didn't engage with it. By engaging with this with it this way, it did activate the critical thinking, the natural kind of, oh really, do you, is that a thing, or like it engaged to research, to further research in different areas. But generally there was an atmosphere of the generic kind of information they received through that. Okay, I'm going to stop here. I feel like I talk so much. I want to thank you for listening to me, and I would like to open it up to your questions, to anything that you may have.
Hi, Carl. We have about 9 minutes left in today's session. Folks, if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat or in the Q&A. Probably chat is easier for everybody. But we did have some great engagement as the session was going through. For example, and when we first shared that poll, Jen was talking about kind of the key phrasing we had in the poll was assistant writing. Something, Carl, you talked about how we can kind of, AI can be used, to generate things or to be able to assist folks. Like you mentioned the quote about the calculator, kind of being an assistive tool in mathematics and such.
Yeah, so I would like to also note, I mean, this is a presentation that, tried to do a lot of things. And I wanted to really familiarize everybody with the kind of climate that we have right now in writing studies, in composition studies, what we are trying to figure out. It is, of course, you're going to find people saying, like we must absolutely implement AI, and people who are feeling, more reticent to applying this. And everybody's kind of trying out different, I guess people who are willing and curious, we're all trying out to figure out what might be the best ways to engage students at specifically as specific as possible into using these tools in the writing process for a specific objective. I think it would be incredibly early to say that yes, AI could provide this type of assistance right now. We're still investigating, and what may work in one class at a specific um, um, stage of the writing process may not translate into a successful activity for another class, depending on the objective. So assisted the only thing that everybody agrees upon right now is that there is a need for AI literacy in the classrooms, in all classrooms, but writing classrooms more so. There is a need for students to truly understand what these tools can do um, before they can engage with them, or before testing what they can do. I forgot it. Did I answer your questions? I'm sorry. I
Yes.
feel like I didn't.
Yeah, definitely. We are getting a few questions in the chat right now.
Good, good.
So I'm seeing a question from Rosalind. They say, it's hard to imagine students being able to think critically and analytically without understanding how to express these ideas in writing. As a writing tutor, I often engage students in a conversation before they write. The writing struggle I have found is in their inability to express thoughtful ideas verbally. How would they then evaluate an AI-generated response?
I'm sorry. So what is the I'm trying to find it in the chat myself. It is, oh, okay, I see. I often engage students in conversation before they write. The writing struggle I have found is their inability to express thoughtful ideas verbally. How would they evaluate? Yes. So that is what I. So the type of exercises that I the example of the exercise I gave here at the end should not come in the beginning of the writing process or in the beginning of a class, especially like a first writing class. I believe, I mean, students need to first be given all the tools necessary to navigate the answers, right? So, how would they be able to evaluate an AI generated response? Is based on specific guidelines that are discussed in class when we are engaging with sources, right? So, in the same way that you would evaluate any other sources that we discuss in class. So, the fact that you're not engaging with this with the information that GenAI provides, a tool provides in the beginning of the writing process, already gives the student some sort of foundation on which to on which to stand before they can evaluate these responses. So they're not going to take that as their first engagement with either the text or a piece of information or an argument.
We have
Yeah.
a question from David. David asks, are you noticing an evolution or development in students' attitudes towards the use of AI? Are they becoming more AI literate? And are they becoming more used to using AI in the classroom, or is this something that still feels new to them?
Excellent question. Just like the previous one, I will say that the level of engagement with AI tools is very uneven. It's not a consistent. It's not a consistent presence in students' life. We have, I would say, a minority of students that are extremely literate in AI, using Gen AI tools, and they use it for a variety of purposes, including coding. And we have a good portion of students who say they don't ever use this because of the fear of kind of associating it with cheating or an invaluable type of feedback. I mean, I feel that there is not a there isn't yet like any kind of evolution. Rather, you see spikes, if I could like use this metaphor. You see students that use it extremely well and are very versed, and students who are very much not interested.
Virginia is asking for a little clarification on the stasis exercise. They ask if you're using a particular AI tool or model when doing the exercise with students.
Yes, another very good question. So Rutgers University is announced that Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, is the AI Gen AI tools of preference at Rutgers. So I gave my students in the exercises we do in the classroom, after providing literacy in good amount, and after we are very much into the writing process. I don't really use Gen AI for brainstorming. I find that still a little iffy. I feel like it's a little too much. That's not the anyway, that's not a question. The question is, yes, I asked students to use their tool of choice, and I gave preference. I mean, I exemplified with ChatGPT and with Copilot. Interestingly enough, a lot of the students used DeepSeek instead of these tools, just for you. And they use I see here the AI2 model, and which one was used? They use the free version of ChatGPT. Although I do have in class couple of students I had in every time I use this, there are maybe one or two students who have subscriptions to the more advanced tools, and this is again a very uneven kind of playing field in terms of using Gen AI tools. But yes, hopefully I answer your question.
I think we have time for about one more question. We have a question from Gloria, who says, faculty want to use AI assignments, faculty want to use AI in assignments meaningfully, not just for the sake of using AI. They're having a difficult time finding ways to do so. This is a meaningful way to integrate AI in writing. Thank you. And they ask, do you know of other ways for faculty to integrate AI into their disciplines?
Yes, so I think that anybody who has writing assignments as assessments in their discipline should consider how they are providing guidelines for this writing assignments. I I have used it with this exercise, and I've also used it for the formal part of the writing. So the other exercise I used in the classroom was after the students had a preliminary first draft with about their argumentative essay. I asked them to use a GenAI tool with to generate three different types of outlines for their argument, and without putting in any of the sources and without putting in all the information they have, but just to generate three different types of outline to present an argument for a specific for a general audience. And then I asked them to reflect on each of these three structures for their project, and to discuss their weaknesses and their strengths in terms of the audience they use, in terms of the sources they already had in mind. So I am trying to use GenAI as a source, as an extra source for them to really exercise their discerning and like critical skills.
Okay, we can squeeze in one last question, and this one comes from Shaz. They say, thank you for sharing, Carla. They ask, what personal guidelines do you set for AI use in your writing courses, and how do you evaluate that use when grading? How do you respond when that has been violated?
Yes, so we have an academic integrity policy that specifies the grading. I do not encourage AI use for activities outside of the classroom. Um, and we, especially because I don't know the level of AI literacy that students have when they join the class. So we go through them as a class. So we start with a more traditional approach to writing in the very beginning of the class, and we slowly introduce a generative AI concepts, and how they work in the writing process, and then we use them together as a class, and I formulate exercises and activity in which students explore the possibilities of these tools in the classroom, but under very guided specific guidelines. Yeah, that's it. We're not at the point in the classroom where we are using GenAI as a co-author, if that is the direction you're asking.
Okay. Thank you so much, Carla. Thank you for presenting here with us today. And thank you for everybody who joined us in the chat. I was keeping up and with the discussion. There was a lot of great talk there. And yeah, thank you all for joining. There's going to be a little 10-minute break, and session B will start at 10 a.m. Carla, thank you again for joining us here today. It was really interesting. I know for myself, everyone's always thinking about AI. But for myself, I kind of wary of it, and this was definitely helped me be a little more open to how to utilize it better in classrooms and such. But yes, thank you again, everybody, for joining. And Carla, thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you all for joining. Thank you.